Why do we turn everything into self-improvement? Have you ever noticed that doing nothing has become suspicious? You sit down for 5 minutes, and some part of your brain whispers, could this be useful? You go for a walk, and suddenly it becomes cardio. You sleep, and suddenly it becomes recovery. You eat breakfast, and suddenly it becomes fuel. You read a book, and suddenly it becomes personal growth. You meditate, but not just to sit quietly for a moment. You meditate to lower stress, improve focus, increase emotional regulation, become more productive, sleep better, live longer, and maybe finally become the kind of person who answers emails on time. Even hobbies are not safe anymore. You can't just draw badly for fun. You have to build a creative practice. You can't just go to the gym because moving your body feels good. You need a plan, a tracker, a goal, a transformation, a before and after photo. You can't just drink water. You have to optimize hydration. And the strangest part is, most of this sounds reasonable. Of course, sleep matters. Of course, food matters. Of course, habits matter. Of course, it's good to grow, learn, reflect, and take care of yourself. The problem is not self-improvement. The problem is what happens when life itself starts to feel like a project that is always behind schedule. Because somewhere along the way, we stopped asking, is this good for me? And started asking, is this making me better? And those are not the same question. This is the weird reason we turn everything into self-improvement. At first, self-improvement feels like freedom. You realize you can change things, you can learn skills, you can sleep better, you can become stronger, you can understand your emotions, you can stop repeating the same patterns. That is powerful. For most of human history, people did not have access to millions of books, podcasts, therapists, coaches, apps, courses, routines, and videos telling them how to improve every part of their life. Now we do. And in many ways, that is amazing. If you struggle with confidence, there is advice. If you struggle with money, there is advice. If you struggle with focus, there is advice. If you struggle with anxiety, relationships, discipline, purpose, creativity, or motivation, there is advice. There's always another framework, another habit, another morning routine, another system, another version of you waiting on the other side of better choices. But this is where the trap begins. Because when improvement becomes always available, imperfection starts to feel like a personal failure. You are tired? Maybe your sleep routine is bad. You are distracted? Maybe your dopamine system is broken. You are sad? Maybe you need journaling, breathwork, cold exposure, sunlight, magnesium, therapy, gratitude, and a cleaner diet. You are not successful yet. Maybe you are not disciplined enough. Maybe your routine is weak. Maybe your mindset is wrong. Maybe you are not trying hard enough. Modern self-improvement often takes normal human experiences and turns them into problems to be solved. Being bored becomes understimulated. Being lazy becomes low performance. Being uncertain becomes lack of clarity. Being sad becomes negative mindset. Rest becomes recovery. Fun becomes mental health maintenance. And suddenly, even the softest parts of life are forced to justify themselves. A walk is not allowed to simply be a walk. It has to reduce stress, improve digestion, increase creativity, count toward your steps, support longevity. A hobby is not allowed to simply be a hobby. It has to become a side hustle, a personal brand, a skill stack, a path to monetization. Even friendship starts to sound like strategy. You don't just spend time with people. You surround yourself with high-value individuals. You build your network. You upgrade your circle. It is a strange way to live. Not because growth is bad, but because life becomes harder to enjoy when everything has to earn its place. And one reason this happens is that self-improvement gives us something very addictive, a feeling of control. Life is uncertain. You can do many things right and still lose. You can work hard and still be ignored. You can eat well and still get sick. You can love someone and still be left. You can plan carefully and still have your life interrupted by something you never saw coming. That is uncomfortable. So self-improvement offers a deal. It says, maybe if you optimize enough, you can protect yourself from chaos. Maybe if your routine is perfect, your life will be stable. Maybe if your body is healthy, your mind will be calm. Maybe if your habits are strong, your future will be safe. Maybe if you become the best version of yourself, nothing can hurt you. Of course, nobody says it that directly. But emotionally, that is often the promise. Optimization becomes a way to negotiate with fear. If I do everything correctly, maybe I will finally feel okay. And this is why self-improvement can become so consuming, because the goal is not just to be healthier or more skilled. The hidden goal is to feel safe, to feel worthy, to feel like you are not wasting your life, to feel like you are not falling behind. That is why the checklist never ends. Because the checklist is not only about tasks, it is about anxiety. And anxiety is very good at moving the finish line. You finally fix your sleep, but now your diet is not clean enough. You fix your diet, but now your training is not optimized. You fix your training, but now your career is not growing fast enough. You work on your career, but now your relationships are not intentional enough. You work on your relationships, but now your inner child needs healing. You work on healing, but now your productivity is slipping. There is always another area of life waiting to be optimized. And because there is always something to improve, you never get to experience the feeling of being done. You only become more aware of everything that could be better. This is one of the cruelest parts of modern self-improvement. The more you learn, the more defective you can feel. Before you were just tired. Now you know about sleep cycles, blue light, caffeine timing, cortisol, deep sleep, REM sleep, mouth taping, room temperature, wearable trackers, and why looking at your phone before bed may have ruined tomorrow before it even began. Before, you just ate lunch. Now, lunch is a moral event. Is it processed? Is it inflammatory? Is it high protein? Is it good for your gut? Is it aligned with your goals? Did you meal prep? Did you track it? Should you feel guilty? Before, you just had a quiet evening. Now you wonder if you should be learning a language, building a business, stretching, reading nonfiction, planning tomorrow, or becoming emotionally available. Information can help us, but too much information can make ordinary life feel like a constant exam, and the grade is always pending. Another reason we turn everything into self-improvement is that modern culture has made identity into a performance. We don't just do things anymore. We become the type of person who does them. You are not just someone who runs, you are a runner. You are not just someone who reads, you are a reader. You are not just someone who drinks coffee and writes notes in the morning. You are a disciplined, intentional, growth-oriented person with a ritual. This can be motivating, but it can also turn your life into a brand you have to maintain. Self-improvement is no longer only about changing behavior. It is about becoming a certain kind of person. The optimized person, the person who wakes up early, the person who has boundaries, the person who eats clean, the person who lifts weights, the person who journals, the person who is emotionally mature, the person who has a 5-year plan, the person who is calm, productive, attractive, financially literate, well-rested, mentally strong, and somehow also present in the moment. This person does not exist, at least not all the time. But the internet makes it look like they do, because online we do not see whole lives. We see edited fragments, a clean desk, a morning routine, a smoothie, a gym mirror, a book with highlighted pages, a calm voice saying, "I changed my life when I started doing these 5 things." And because we see thousands of these fragments, we start combining them into one impossible human. Someone out there is waking up at 5 a.m. Someone else is making 6 figures online. Someone else has perfect skin. Someone else reads 50 books a year. Someone else meal preps. Someone else travels. Someone else has a beautiful apartment. Someone else has a perfect relationship. Someone else has healed their trauma. Our brain quietly stitches all of them together and says, this is what a normal, successful person looks like. And compared to that imaginary person, of course, we feel behind. So we try to catch up. We buy the planner. We download the app. We start the routine. We watch another video. We promise ourselves that this week will be different. And sometimes it helps. But sometimes we are not improving because we love life. We are improving because we are ashamed of being human. That is the darker side of the whole thing. Self-improvement often presents itself as self-love. But sometimes it is self-rejection, wearing nice clothes. It says, I will love myself when I am disciplined. I will accept myself when I am successful. I will relax when I have earned it. I will enjoy life when I become better at life. But that moment keeps moving away. Because if your worth depends on becoming better, then the current version of you is always a problem. And this creates a strange emotional loop. You feel bad about yourself, so you start improving. Improvement gives you hope, but improvement also reminds you of everything that is wrong, so you feel bad again. Then, you search for another method, another solution, another reset, another version of yourself. It is like trying to escape a room by polishing the walls. You are working hard. You are doing something. It feels productive, but you are still inside the same room. The way out is not to reject growth. That would be too easy and honestly, not very useful. There is nothing noble about staying stuck just to prove you are not obsessed with productivity. The answer is not to stop improving. The answer is to ask a better question. Is this improvement serving my life? Or is my life serving the idea of improvement? Because there is a difference. Exercise can make life bigger, but it can also make life smaller if every meal becomes fear and every missed workout becomes shame. Meditation can create peace, but it can also become another thing to fail at. Reading can open your mind, but it can also become a way to feel superior or productive. Journaling can help you understand yourself, but it can also become overthinking with better handwriting. Even therapy language can help people communicate, but it can also turn every uncomfortable moment into a diagnosis, a pattern, a trigger, or a problem to process. A tool is useful when it gives you more freedom. It becomes a cage when it makes you afraid to live without it. So maybe the real question is not, how do I optimize everything? Maybe the real question is, what parts of life should remain unoptimized? What if some things are allowed to be inefficient? What if a walk is allowed to have no goal? What if a meal is allowed to be just delicious? What if a hobby is allowed to stay private, messy, and financially useless? What if rest does not need a scientific explanation? What if you can spend an evening doing something pointless and still not be wasting your life? That sounds simple, but for many people, it feels almost radical. Because we live in a culture that quietly teaches us that every moment should produce something: money, fitness, knowledge, content, discipline, healing, beauty, status, progress. Even relaxation is often sold back to us as a way to become more productive later. Rest so you can perform. Sleep so you can focus. Take breaks so you can work harder. But what if rest matters, even if it produces nothing? What if joy matters, even when it does not improve you? What if being alive is not only preparation for a better version of being alive? That is the part self-improvement often forgets. You are not a machine that needs constant updates. You are not a business that needs quarterly growth. You are not a phone battery that needs optimizing. You are a person. And people are not meant to be efficient all the time. Some of the best parts of life are inefficient. Long conversations that go nowhere. Bad jokes, slow mornings. Rewatching a movie you already know. Walking without tracking it. Cooking something that takes too long. Learning something you will never monetize. Sitting outside and not turning it into mindfulness practice. Just sitting there. Just being a creature in the world for a while. That does not mean discipline is fake. It does not mean goals are bad. It does not mean you should abandon responsibility. It means improvement should have a direction. And the direction should not be endless self-correction. It should be a better life, a fuller life, a life with more room to breathe. Because the ultimate goal of self-improvement should not be to become someone who is always improving. The goal should be to become someone who can actually live. Maybe that means waking up early. Maybe it means sleeping in. Maybe it means building a business. Maybe it means refusing to turn your passion into a business. Maybe it means tracking your habits. Maybe it means deleting the tracker because it made you hate the thing you once enjoyed. The point is not which choice looks more disciplined. The point is whether the choice makes you more alive or more trapped. And maybe that is why this topic feels so personal. Because deep down, many of us are exhausted. Not only from work, not only from responsibilities, but from constantly managing ourselves, monitoring ourselves, fixing ourselves, explaining ourselves, turning our lives into dashboards, trying to become the kind of person who finally deserves peace. But peace cannot be the prize at the end of endless optimization. At some point, peace has to be allowed into the room before everything is fixed. Because everything will never be fixed. There will always be another habit, another weakness, another goal, another upgrade. another version of you that looks better from a distance. So maybe the rebellion is small. Maybe it starts with one thing you refuse to optimize, one walk with no step count, one hobby with no audience, one meal with no guilt, one evening with no improvement plan, one moment where you are not becoming anything, you are just here. And for once, that is enough. Because the weirdest thing about self improvement is that sometimes the most improved version of you is not the one who does everything perfectly. It is the one who no longer needs every part of life to prove something. So, yes, improve, learn, grow, take care of your body, take care of your mind, build things, change things, try. But do not forget what all of this was supposed to be for. You were not born to optimize sleep, food, work, hobbies, relationships, and every quiet moment in between. You were born to live, and living is not always productive. Sometimes it is beautifully useless, and maybe that is exactly why it matters.